Welcome to the Thunder Underground podcast. My name is Trent.
I'm Jason.
And this episode is our best of 2015 year in review.
Yes, we have some great stuff lined up. We got an awesome be-all, end-all list of what we think was the greatest of the year. So it's going to be a good episode. Trent, how was your Christmas?
It was good.
Awesome.
Good. Family was in town. Everything went great. How about you?
It was great. Family, presents, food, all that.
Yes. Any metal or rock
Lots
that we can tie into this?
Yeah, I mean, I had my metal Christmas ornaments up.
Right.
Had my Slayer ornament, my Megadeth, my Metallica ornament, whatever. So, you can always fit some kind of metal in there. Just know that. There's always a room for metal.
Yeah, I used to have an Ozzy and I think I can't remember, maybe a Pantera ornament, but I lost them when I moved a long time ago.
Really?
But now I've got like the Gene Simmons figure.
Yes.
And that's probably about the only metal thing I've got on the tree. But,
okay, well, you got to have the metal ornaments. I'm big on that. So I've got a Black Label Society one too. So anyways, yes, good holiday, and we're ready to get into this list right now.
Yeah, we're approaching the end of the year, but you might be hearing this into the new year. If so, thanks for checking it out regardless. We've got tons of stuff to talk about because this year was pretty heavy as far as new albums come out and pretty heavy as far as quality stuff coming out.
Yes, it was chock full of just great stuff, and you don't know where to start, or you're going to miss something, or you're going to forget about something that you listened to 8 months ago, or whatever. It's just crazy. You don't do that a lot because you don't get years like this where just everything is coming at you and everything is really good. So it was tough to wade through it all sometimes.
Yeah, I remember we talked about this last year. We didn't have the podcast then, but we made a post on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and everything about how 2014 was a really good year for new music. And it was, but 2015 far exceeded that as far as the amount of good music, which, I mean, I can't think of a year with this amount of quality stuff, and I don't know when, since the 90s.
Yeah, I mean,
it could have been the early 2000s. I just don't know. I can't place a year with just that much stuff all at once.
Yeah, we got, like I said earlier, we got hit with so much stuff. It has been quite a while since maybe like 92 or 93. Which that's a whole other podcast, but I definitely know what you mean.
Yeah, and so on that note, we wanted to just rattle off some names here of some bands that had albums out this year that we did listen to, gave them a chance, and we did love it, but it just didn't make our list, but we wanted to shout it out because it's kind of surprising. Some of the bands on this list that I would think, they've got a new album coming out, they're definitely going to be on my year-end list, but so much other stuff came out that didn't make it.
I know.
And there's also some debut albums in here that from bands that are making the cut of the stuff here. So just to start it off, we had the new one from Frank Hannon Band, and that was another quality release from him. And we talked about this. Several of these we talked about. We had an episode back in July, I think it was, the best of 2015 so far. And we had several albums that we were swearing were going to be in our top list that aren't there now.
And look what happened.
Right, because so much stuff came out in the second half of the year.
Yeah.
And Frank Hannon, of course, was one of those, which that doesn't mean these albums aren't great. They are great. It's just, like I'm repeating myself over and over, there's 15 albums that were greater, basically.
Oh, no doubt that something came along that grabbed you more than this did or that did, and it doesn't mean it's any worse. But Frank Hannon was great. He's singing better than he ever has, so that was definitely one to mention.
Yeah, and it's solid. If you don't like his stuff, you're gonna love it. It's one of his probably his most complete album, I would think.
Yes.
And then there's a great new one from Adrenaline Mob. They've had several albums now that are great. Black Star Riders, their second album is high quality, just like the first. And I know a lot of people have this on their top 10 list, and it's a good one if you're not familiar with them. It's basically Thin Lizzy. Changed their name and releasing the original music now. Check that out. New one from Kid Rock, a new one from Coal Chamber that was really good. New one from We got Revolution Saints, which was a super group.
I loved that one.
Yeah, that was the one. How did you describe that?
Oh God, I can't. What did I say? It was like the early '80s sports movies. You know, driving in the sports car at night. You know, getting pumped up or whatever.
Or like every album sounded like it could have been on a 1980s sports movie. Right?
Yeah, they all could have been in. They all could have been in a Rocky movie.
Right.
So, and it was just every song was like epic or it was catchy. That's definitely another one. You know, I might just change my list right now.
Right.
Although I think it's too late.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I don't know. Were you going to say something more about that album or no?
No.
Okay. Well, we've also got a new one from Danko Jones.
That was a good one.
Which was a good one. You know, Danko Jones has never put out an album that wasn't good in my opinion, but it just didn't, I guess it didn't grab me as much as the last couple did, and that's why it wasn't on my list.
Yeah.
And then there was new from Camelot and Nightwish, both of the, you know, the power metal style bands, and both of them put out quality albums, and they're both on tour. You know, check these guys out. There's We Are Harlot, which is the one you were big on.
Oh, I was big on that one.
Yeah.
I was huge on that one, and it's amazing it didn't make it. Like we said, there was a ton more shit, and it was really hard to narrow it down. But this was a great album. This was like glam metal on crack. It was such a fun album. If you don't listen to it, then I don't know, your ears are broke.
Mark Slaughter had a pretty good album come out.
That was a surprising one.
Yeah, it was surprising at how good it was, I guess.
Yes.
You always kind of think of those guys from that period and think, well, they're putting out a solo album, their first solo album out now 20 years or 15 years after their last band's album. It's not going to be great.
Yeah.
But it really was. It was a good quality album, and I think he played almost everything on it. And then there's a new one from Tremonti.
That was a killer.
Which I'm surprised didn't make our list. Cause that
solid.
Yeah.
What about the Buck Cherry album that came out this year?
Yeah, that's we talked about that on at least on a different podcast, and that one to me is kind of, I liked it a lot better than the last couple.
Okay.
It was kind of back up there with the first few for me. Kind of glad to see him back in that less serious kind of tone like the last couple albums were.
Yeah.
And then there's new Symphony X, which is another one that kind of surprised me didn't make my list because it's high quality, good album, solid. These guys never do wrong, and it's great to have them back. What about the new Joe Satriani?
That's another good one.
Yeah.
You know, I think I remember kind of what I said earlier when we talked about it earlier in the year. I liked Unstoppable Momentum better, but this one was another good one. Just shred-tastic as usual.
Right. And the new, I know you're not really big on either Pop Evil or Shine Down, but I really dig both of those, and they both had good albums. They just weren't as good as their previous stuff, so that's kind of why they fell off my radar, I think.
Yeah.
But it was still good stuff if you're into either of those. Then there was the new Trixter, which kind of, you know, this is probably the biggest one on this list that we're rattling off that I'm surprised didn't make your list.
Well, and it's funny you said that. This was just outside of it, and it was on it there for maybe a few minutes. 5 minutes there, it was on it. It just didn't make the cut, but damn it, if we had a top 16 or 17, probably would have been there. It was so hard, again, you know, it was so hard to weed through and you know, make cuts to these lists, and it was just rough to do, but God, that was such a great album, and kind of like Mark Slaughter, just, you know, such a surprise and awesome to hear a band from that era still putting out stuff that stands up against, you know, Here or something, you know?
Right. Yeah, it was just a great, like I think you mentioned when we talked about it before, a great party rock album. Just the kind of, you know, hang out on the back porch drinking beers in the middle of the night on the summer, you know.
That's right. That's
the type of music it is. It fits well with that, and it you know, it doesn't come off, you know, corny like you know, a lot of people think those bands from that era were.
Exactly. That's a great point. It catches that good time vibe, but it's not cheesy.
Right. And in that same vein, there was a new one from Nelson, and that was another, it was a good quality album, and it was, there's these guys are great musicians, and they put out solid rock, and they even announced that this is the last rock album they're going to do. They're going into kind of like a Americana country style vibe. I think
they're going to more of a Eagles songwritery type kind of stuff.
But yeah, this was, it's a good album if you dug that kind of, AOR light rock from the early 90s, you're going to dig this album.
Oh, big time. Big time.
Act of Defiance was this somewhat of a super group with the guys from Megadeth, and who else was in it? The guy from Shadows Fall.
Yes. Matt Sean from Shadows Fall. The singer was from Scar the Martyr.
Right.
So that one was, I think that was one I didn't really give a lot of, attention to like I should have. That one is probably worth another listen, and I should really get into that a little bit more. Again, there's so much going on and so many releases. It just kind of, got lost in the shuffle, but I do want to revisit that one for sure.
Yeah, I was the same way. I listened to it and I liked it, but I think it just didn't blow me away off first listen like I hoped it would. And so it kind of just fell off my radar there for a bit. The one that didn't, though, was the new Lynch Mob, which when I first heard it, I thought this is definitely going to be on my list. But here we are. And it's, this is, I don't know if, Lynch Mob is a band a lot of people didn't really even know back whenever this stuff was popular. But those first two albums are great, and this one is right up there with them. And everything they've done since they returned like 10 years ago has been great, and this is no exception. It's just solid, bluesy hard rock.
Yeah. Well, and, Lynch Mob is just up your alley. You're such a big Lynch Mob fan, so.
Yeah, and was not let down by that. And there's the new one from Motorhead. We had several, legendary bands come out with albums, and Motorhead was one of them.
Yeah.
And it's a good, what do you expect? You got what you expected. It's Motorhead.
For sure.
It's a good album. I liked it. There was a new one from Bon Jovi, which was decent, it wasn't great, but it wasn't horrible.
Yeah.
The new Scorpions is good. I know you're not a fan, but it wasn't as good as the last one, so it kind of didn't make my list,
Okay, that's cool. Yeah. That's cool.
And then there was new Pentagram, which that one just came out a couple months ago, I think. And I've only listened to that one a couple times, but it's just really solid and great, and it's glad that these guys are putting out new music. So if that's something you're not familiar with, check out the Last Days Here documentary.
Oh, definitely check that out.
It'll floor you, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. Well, what about Insight?
Oh, yeah. No, hold it. Was that this year?
It's on here.
I wrote it on the list, but I think that was 2014. I don't know what I put there.
But anyway, cut that part out if you need to.
No, we can just say right here, it's a great album. Check it out. We've had a podcast here, a few episodes with Richie Cavallera. Go listen to that if you're into thrash. You'd probably dig this. So
for sure.
Check out Up in Hell, and then they've got a new one coming out this coming spring. Then there was new Hollywood Vampires, their first album.
That was a great one.
Yeah, this is another super group, and it was all covers of 60s and 70s rock songs.
I didn't even know Johnny Depp had it in him.
Right. And it's an Alice. It's basically, you listen to it, it's like listening to an Alice Cooper album because it's his voice.
Exactly.
And it's got the feel of his music. And it's a lot of the songs that he has covered live in the past anyway. Then there was new Metal Allegiance and Last in Line.
Oh, that's right.
Both of these are more super groups. Man, this year was like heavy on the super group.
Very heavy. Well, all these guys are doing different stuff now.
Yeah. And
I liked the Blackstone Cherry live album.
Yeah.
That was a great one. And I'm not big on live albums.
Yeah, I remember that. You wrote a review and even said that in there.
Yes, exactly.
So go to thethunderunderground.com, read the review on that. There was new Children of Bodom, which was solid. New, where am I at on the list here? new Disturbed, which once again I know you're not a fan.
That's all you, man.
But I'm going to echo what Jamie Welch said in our most recent podcast from Framing the Red. I've read a lot of bad reviews about this from people. And to me, the thing people are bitching about is probably the thing I like, is it's just like, it doesn't sound like the last few albums.
It's a little different?
Yeah, it goes back to kind of the first couple albums where, I don't know, it just has a more, like, they're not trying as hard, you know?
Gotcha.
If that makes sense. And then there's new Soulfly, which was a good solid release, like it always is from them, you know? I mean, and their last several albums have been more in the metal vein. They kind of stepped away from that original, you know, tribal, rappy kind of feel they had, you know, if that's a good word.
New metal?
Yeah, new metal. There you go. That's the word I was looking for. Devil You Know, the album, or the band featuring Howard Jones, formerly of Killswitch. Good stuff. The new Def Leppard was pretty good.
That was a solid one.
And it was definitely better than the last new album they had several years ago, Sparkle, whatever it's called, Sparkle Lounge.
I agree.
This has more of a feel of the 80s stuff, and it doesn't sound forced, you know. It sounds like that era, and and most of the songs are good. There's a couple kind of boring ones on there, I guess, but for the most part, if you like Def Leppard, you should like it. The new Danzig album was a covers album. I thought it was pretty cool. There was new Striper and New Europe. I'll toss them together since they kind of fall under the same kind of vibe of that melodic.
And they both kicked ass. They sounded great.
Yeah, and it's kind of shocked me because Europe's one of those bands where really all I've ever known was the 3 or 4 songs, you know.
Yeah.
Of course, the Final Countdown and then the other songs.
Well, Carrie, that's your favorite.
Yeah. Carrie and what was the other one? Cherokee. It's just like, what, you know, I never really got into them a whole lot, but I listened to this new album because I listened to the podcast that Eddie Trunk did with, I can't even remember who he did it with in the band.
Yeah.
And he was going on about how great the album was, and it is a great album. And then there's a new Queensryche.
That's right.
And this is definitely, if you ever loved Queensryche and quit caring, I beg you to listen to this. And this album, Condition Human, and the one before it, which was self-titled, because they're back sounding like, you know, they sounded in 1991 and before.
And it didn't make your final list, huh?
No, I thought it would, but it's one of those ones, like you said, you know, if it was a top 20, it would have been on there.
Yeah, oh, definitely. I know how it is.
Yeah, but their new singer, you know, and the fact that the 3 original dudes in the band have kind of control over the writing process too has helped, I think.
Yeah, kind of brought it back to what it needs to be back to, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, and it sounds like Queensryche, and it sounds great. There was new Vision of Disorder. It's kind of cool to see them back.
Yeah.
Did you listen to, I wrote this down, and I'll be honest, I haven't listened to it. Did you listen to the Joel Hoekstra album?
Was it the
13, or what was it called?
No, wasn't there one that was like acoustic? I can't remember if I did or not. I know I listened to him on Eddie Trunk's podcast, and I was gonna listen to that album. I really can't tell you, and that comes back to again. There's so much stuff, right, and so much going on. It's kind of hard to keep it straight sometimes. We can be honest, you know.
Yeah, I think that looks like that covers the list of just, you know, all the stuff we've got down here that didn't make our lists.
Yeah, you know, some honorable mentions maybe.
Murder FM, that album came out earlier
yep,
late summer, I think, and
great stuff.
Yeah, and we had 2 of the members of that band on a podcast here a few episodes ago.
Great episode, one of my favorites.
Yeah, it's a great episode, and this album's great because it has a different feel than what, you know, the standard stuff you hear nowadays has.
That's right.
It's kind of a mix of several different styles, so go check them out. Well, with all that, we also wanted to throw in a few albums that weren't hard rock or heavy metal that we dug.
Yeah.
And I'll just start. I had Just Joe on my list. This is a dude that, we've mentioned several times on different episodes. We're both a huge fan of Joe Altier, and he's been doing this solo thing, Just Joe, for he's been doing it for a long time, but he's been focused it as his main thing for probably 8 or 9 years now, I think. And he used to be the vocalist for Brand New Sin, which was a heavy metal band that you might remember from the early 2000s.
Which we loved.
Yes. And his solo stuff's just him and a piano, and it's phenomenal. The dude has an amazing voice. He does a lot of covers, but he does a lot of original stuff. He had a live album come out earlier this year that covered his original stuff and some covers and some Brand New Sin stuff and some stuff from his other band, Elephant Mountain. It kind of encompasses his whole career.
Yeah. Yeah, his voice will just level you.
Yeah, and he also had his album, The Singles 2015, came out just like a month or so ago, where it covers all the singles he had this year.
Okay.
And yeah, definitely find this guy on Facebook, Just Joe. Follow him and listen to his stuff on, Spotify or whatever. I promise if you dig amazing vocals, you will not be disappointed.
Oh yeah, you'll love it.
Then we had Richard's Crane was a one I dug because I'm a huge Whitfield Crane fanboy. And this was an album he did with should have done my research better. Is it Dave Richards? Oh no, Lee Richards. Lee Richards. And he was in the band Dropbox. And this is you got two guys from two hard rock bands, but it's just an acoustic rock album basically.
Yeah.
And it's great stuff. They had a video out for a song that featured Miles Kennedy trading vocals with Whitfield Crane. It was a great song. This whole album's good. And then new Chris Cornell album, his solo album. It had a few songs that leaned hard rock, but the majority of it is your standard Cornell solo stuff that's laid back. But I listened to this one several times after it came out. It's a great, solid album.
Okay.
And speaking of that, this new Zac Brown album from this year, a lot of people might know because I think he had a hit single now with the song that Chris Cornell was singing on with him.
Oh yeah, that definitely was a hit.
Yeah, and
that was a great song.
Yeah, it's a great song. It's which is kind of cool because I think we talked about this a long time ago, not on a podcast, but
yeah,
that I could definitely see Zac Brown heading in that direction. Where 20 years from now, Zac Brown's just going to be a guy you can't even label as
That's
country
right.
or rock or anything. He's just going to be
It's going to be him.
Yeah, it's just going to be him, and he's going to have this sound where he draws fans from all genres.
Yeah, that guy can do anything, and he doesn't look like a dumbass doing it.
Right.
A lot of people might branch out, and their fans are like, what the hell are you doing? Well, Zac Brown is just one of those guys that can pull it off no matter what. And it's just gonna get better and bigger and really pay off for him, in the future.
Yeah. And that's one guy I've never seen live. I'd love to see that band live. I've always heard great things about that.
I agree.
And you've got a couple you wanted to mention.
I do have a couple. For the most part, it was hard because I'm a metalhead at heart. I'm a hard rock fan, and that's really just kind of what I stick to. Most of the time, if I branch out to anything, it's a little bit of Americana roots music, or like Ian Moore or Sturgill Simpson, or old country. That's really kind of where it goes for me outside of metal. And Willie Nelson and Merle Haggard had an album out this year called Django and Jimmy that was, it was amazing, because anything those guys do, even at their age, is still insane. It's still a treat to the ears. And then I'm really big on an artist named Lindy Ortega. She's got a great voice. She's got a great vibe. A really good kind of rootsy sound. It makes you feel like you're in Austin or something.
Oh yeah.
And her focus, I think, is alt country, or country music, but not like pop country. But she's been on, she's, recorded with Tim Armstrong though, just, to give you an idea. And she had an album out this year called Faded Gloryville that was, just, it was fun. It was well-written songs, and then there was some slow stuff where her voice just killed you. It was great stuff. And that's pretty much, those are my picks for, non-heavy stuff that I was really digging on this year.
Well, that reminded me, as soon as something that wasn't on my list, as soon as you said her name, was, like you said, Tim Armstrong.
Yes.
And he doesn't release albums, but he releases singles all the time.
Yeah.
And under the name Tim Time Bomb.
And I think this is where she was recording with him, was under the Tim Time Bomb thing.
Yeah, like you remember they did I Want to Be Sedated, she sang on with him.
Yes.
A cover
of
that.
That's right.
And if you're a fan of Rancid or anything like, even just like you said, Americana style stuff, even maybe, check out Tim Time Bomb, because this guy's got, I don't even know. If you go to like Spotify or iTunes, you're going to see probably 100 singles on there over the last 3 years.
Yeah, exactly.
Because he just records something, throws it up. He doesn't do albums. But, half of it's original, half of it's covers of stuff all across the board, and then even covers of his own stuff, the Rancid songs. So
he'll just like do them in a kind of a different vibe.
Yeah, just
Maybe
a laid back
mellow,
acoustic mellow vibe,
Yep. And I also have to say, I'm saying Americana and roots, and I kind of feel like a douche saying that, because it's really just a label a lot of times for just country music. But now country music is, a lot of people think it's Luke Bryan or whatever the fuck. Right. And that's not country music at all.
Well, yeah, you don't want to say country music because you don't want people to think that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. So now the powers that be, I don't know if it's, idiots in Nashville or whatever, but the shit that is actually real country music, they call Americana or roots. And I think that's stupid. So I just wanted to get that out there. Artists like, Sturgill Simpson and Dale Watson, Lindy Ortega, those are actually real country, and they should be, what real country, is. So there you go. They're off my soapbox now.
Well, that's a good segue to jump back into metal, I
guess.
Yes,
I guess so. I don't know. I totally got off but you know what? It's our year-end review.
Yeah, we're just talking about 2015.
That's right. And, this is our podcast. We can do whatever the hell we want.
Right. Well, let's jump into this whole thing. We've got several honorable mentions, and then our list of 15, the best 15 of 2015.
Yes.
So let's get into it. All right, starting off, our first major honorable mention is Whitesnake, the Purple album.
Oh, definitely.
This was one that I swore was going to be on my list, and if it was on my list, it would probably be in the top 5 or 10, but I just made a decision that thought, well, since it's basically a remake, covers, not really covers, he was involved in all the songs.
Yeah.
But it's Whitesnake, the current version of Whitesnake, covering Deep Purple songs from when David Coverdale was in Deep Purple.
Yes.
And this album is fucking amazing.
Oh man, it is a barn burner, a face melter.
Yeah, Reb Beach and Joe Hoekstra just take this thing to another level.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah, dude. Yeah.
Just everything about it. Coverdale sounds as good as ever, and these songs just, I'll be honest, I always loved Deep Purple, but I'm not like a diehard fan where I just listen to everything they've ever done.
Yeah.
And I knew probably 5 of these songs, and there's like 14 on here, and it made me go back and listen to some of this stuff, and it's unbelievable, and it's, I guess we can mention that at least the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame finally pulled their head out of their ass, but I'm still going to bitch about them because just like Rush, Kiss, Alice Cooper, it should have been done the year they were eligible.
Oh, yeah, it should have been done when we were still kids.
Right. But
laugh at that, but that's actually fucking true.
Right. the thing that shocked me the most about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is that they're actually inducting that first lineup as well.
Yeah.
Or not the first lineup, but the lineup with Coverdale and Glenn Hughes.
Yes, that to me, yeah, I agree.
I was shocked. I thought we were going to get the
very first lineup or whatnot, whatever.
I thought it would be the Ian Gillan, the popular hit-making lineup from the late 70s, mid-late 70s, And they, obviously, all those guys are going in, but so is the guys from the early lineup with, like Byrne and Stormbringer and all the stuff that is on this album.
Yes.
So, if you're a fan of Deep Purple or hard rock in general, obviously you are. If you're listening to this, you're a fan of hard rock. Check this thing out. It is just unbelievable. And I was lucky enough to be able to see them live when they were touring this album. And they played I think it was 6 songs off it, mixed in with the Whitesnake songs. And it was unbelievable.
Yeah.
So.
And also, the production on the album is just stellar. It's just crystal clear. They're right there in your living room.
Who produced it? I put you on the spot. You don't know, do you?
No, but whoever the fuck did is amazing.
It was Bob Rock.
Was it really?
No.
You asshole.
Okay. Now.
God damn you, Trent.
We made a top 15 list since it's 2015. That's why the number 15 is there, obviously.
Yeah, do you want to get into how we each made lists and then we put it together and some dropped off and whatever?
Yeah, as you would know, if you sat down with a friend of yours, there's no way you're going to be able to come up with a list where both of you are, exactly happy with every placement of everything.
Especially with Trent, because I like better shit than he does. But anyways.
Right.
Okay, sorry. Fuck you, man.
Sorry, I don't have a.
She's giving you a hard time.
I didn't have a witty comeback.
Cut that out. I'm a dick.
No, the top 15, we each made our own list, and then I just put them together, combined them, weighted number system, basically. If it was number 1 on my list, it got 15 points. If it was number 2 on your list, it got 14 points. All down, number 15 on the list got 1 point.
Yeah.
So obviously, those ones at the end of our lists fell off the list.
Yeah. But it's fair, and it's a good way to make a combined list.
Yeah.
There leaves no question.
It kind of, and it averaged itself out. I think we had, out of the 15, I think we had 6 that we both had on our album.
Yeah,
both on our list, 6 or 7.
It's like when you sent it to me, I had it was solid. So I think we did a good job on this one.
Yeah, and it's a good way to average it, because besides the 6 or 7 that we both had on our list, of the other 7 or 8, it basically had, 4 from each of us probably.
Uh-huh.
And then 3 or 4 from each of us fell off the lists. And so those are technically what we're calling the honorable mentions, since they were on our list but fell off. And starting with your first one that fell off was Sevendust, Kill the Flaw.
Yes. That was just, they always have they always come out with an album every couple of years. And I have to admit, the last couple of years, sometimes it's hit and miss. But I don't know, the stars lined up. They had a good, strong outing on this one. Nominated for a Grammy, even.
Right.
So, there's still a lot of validity in this band, and they demand to be heard.
Yeah, and it's a great album, solid all the way through.
Oh, definitely.
The first one to fell off my list was Sweet and Lynch, which was one of the first albums that came out this year, I think.
Yes.
Of anything that we're talking about. It was early January, and it's, obviously that was before everything came out, so I was like, oh, this is definitely going to make my list,
Yeah.
And it was one of the ones that was I think it was number 15 on my list, and it's one of the ones that could have been replaced with several other things that we've already talked about, and like Sevendust and Slayer and a few other ones that I was just trying to figure out who was going to be in those last couple spots. But Sweet and Lynch is obviously Michael Sweet, George Lynch. 2 guys that are, at the top of their game still to this day at what they do. And it's cool because, George Lynch has a little more of a punch and attitude to his playing than Stryper does. And even though the newer Stryper has more, attitude, I think, than the early stuff did, just Michael Sweet's voice with George Lynch just gives it, something else, if that is a way to put it.
Yeah.
It sounds like you expect it to sound. It sounds exactly like George Lynch playing with Michael Sweet singing. But
Well, then there you go.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm a huge George Lynch fan, always have been. Michael Sweet, I'm a fan, but I'm kind of indifferent. I don't follow everything he does constantly. But I really dug this album. It's a solid hard rock album.
Yeah.
Then I had Backyard Babies, which was a huge thing for me because I was so glad these guys were back. It's been I think 8 years since the last album. This album called 4x4, and it picks up right where they left off. It's just great, good time. Kind of that sleazy mix, punk, glam mix with, it's got a lot of pop sensibility to it at the same time, but it's also got tons of raw attitude, where people from all different genres, kind of like we talked about, Zach Brown would like this band,
Yeah.
because they cross all kind of, like they opened for Social Distortion, they've opened for Michael Monroe, just different, different genres of stuff.
Yeah.
Then there was Slayer was on your list.
Yeah, I mean, if you got a big 4 band going on, you can't not include them. So, and it was a first album without Hanneman, so, and they still pulled it off, still had some memorable songs. So, that made my list. Sad to see it drop off, but that's okay.
That's probably my fault for not putting it on mine, right?
Well, hey, but that's all good. That's how
Right.
That's how it works, and that's how it goes.
Yeah, because I was really happy. I think we talked about this on a podcast. I was really worried about it because of the Hanneman thing, since he was a heavy in the writing process, and it didn't disappoint me at all.
No, I mean, and it sounds like Slayer.
Yeah.
Trivium, that was the next one. That was on my list. The last couple of Trivium albums have had some moments, but haven't been, haven't grabbed me. This album grabbed me big time. So, definitely go check it out. It's a little bit more solid. I like that it's all singing instead of growling.
Yeah, this is right the first thing where there's no growling at
Yes,
all, right?
and I think I love growling, but I like when they make a step up or a different step, so this was very interesting. So I really enjoyed this album. And then I had The Sword. That was one that didn't make our combined list. I really liked. I'm like I said earlier in earlier podcasts, I'm new to this band. And when I'm new to a band, the first thing I want to listen to is their latest album. And, I like that it's riffy and it's heavy, but it's not like, I don't know, I don't want to say it's not loud, because it's loud. It's just, there's just this really cool kind of trippy, maybe a little bit of a laid back vibe with all the, the heavy guitars going on. I just really enjoyed it. I love the guy singing. So, that was one I ended up listening to a lot more than I thought I would this year.
Yeah, that's one of the ones that was hard for me to not put on my list.
Yeah.
And I think the first time I heard it, I was, just a little kind of shocked, because I'd listened to the earlier stuff, and I didn't dislike it at all. I mean, there wasn't anything about it that I disliked. I just was kind of taken aback because it didn't sound like the earlier stuff. But like you said, it's got this, the more you listen to it, it's a great album. And it's, like you said, it's got that riffy, stonery vibe that those guys developed, but like you said, more laid back into like a classic feel, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's right. It's The Sword. It's called High Country. Go get it.
Definitely. Then Ugly Kid Joe.
Yeah, you had Ugly Kid Joe.
Yes, and this was one of those albums, or one of those bands like Faith No More and Corrosion of Conformity that I've been setting around for 10, 15 years, just like well, obviously not 15 years with COC, but like, years and years hoping that they're going to put out a new album. And I wasn't, at first listen, I didn't love it as much as the earlier ones, but after listening to it several times, it grew on me really quick. It was, I don't want to use the word mature with Ugly Kid Joe, but it's like, it's just got a more of that kind of feel with it. It's just, it's got a, you know, one of the cool things about Kid Joe always was the lyrics were real, you know, tongue in cheek and in your face and just like an attitude type thing. And this one has a few songs like that, but for the most part, it's just a rock album, you know, and it's great. You know, if you're a fan of the band, you know, you can't really go wrong. And Whitfield Crane sounds great. And like I said earlier, I'm a fanboy, admittedly.
Yeah.
Then you had Michael Monroe.
Yes. This was, again, this is a great album. Had a lot of stuff on there. It's like the last few albums he's done is just bam, 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 quality, in your face, catchy, memorable, any of that kind of stuff. You know, if you like, if you like old glam, if you like stuff like you were talking about, Trent, Backyard Babies, stuff like that, you can't not listen to Michael Monroe. And this was a good one.
Yeah, he's just criminally underrated.
Yes.
Is the best way to talk about him. His whole career, I mean, at least in America. I know he's obviously had success in his area of the world, but...
Yeah, I mean, in just the first two songs alone, you know, This Ain't No Love Song and Old King's Road, just, you know, you should want to pay $12 just for those two, you know. So this is a great album. It's called Blackout States. Again, get into it.
And the final one that was on my honorable mentions that didn't make the final cut was Soilwork's new album, The Ride Majestic.
That's right.
I'm a huge fan of these guys, and I've loved everything they've ever done. And I know the album before this was, I think, on my list like 2 years ago, like near the top. So, but this one I didn't love as much, but it's amazing album. These guys can't do any wrong. They're kind of like, they're my favorite band of that whole era of music, you know, or all those bands that came from, you know, the Finland, Sweden era, you know, in the early 2000s, late 90s.
Yeah.
The In Flames, all those kind of bands. They're the one for me that I became the hugest fan of.
Yeah.
And this album's no different. You know, it's just a great, amazing album, amazing vocalist, amazing guitar work, just like they always do. All right, so we're ready to just get into this 15 countdown now.
Yes, let's get into it. We're getting into the real stuff here.
All right, number 15 was Sol Invictus from Faith No More.
Yeah,
and I mentioned them earlier. This is one of my all-time favorite bands. That's their first new album since 1997, and it didn't disappoint at all. It's a, you know, just like Faith No More always did. It doesn't sound like any of their other albums, but it sounds like Faith No More, which is an amazing quality that they have.
Yes, exactly.
That every album they have done sounds completely different.
Completely different, but you know it's them.
But it
somehow.
Sounds exactly like them.
I know.
And it's chock full of great stuff. You know, like the single Motherfucker and the single Superhero, the song Sunny Side Up. This whole album from beginning to end is just, it's just great stuff. You know, you can't go wrong when you've got the greatest vocalist of all time. You've got the amazing drummer Mike Borden.
That's right.
And the keyboard stylings of Roddy Bottom.
And we got to see him this year.
Yes. So that was great. You know, I was kind of worried I wasn't going to get to catch them.
Yeah.
Because when they came around this area, like Dallas, I was out of town. But we got to catch them at Riot Fest, and that was phenomenal. And number 14 on our list was Psychic Warfare from Clutch.
Yes, I mean, what can you say about Clutch? They're always, if they put out an album, it's always going to make our list.
Yeah, one of the most consistent hard rock bands probably ever. Like, these guys don't have, your hashtag all killer, no filler. That's what they do every album. And they've continued with this one. This is, I don't know where to... It's like a lot of these bands where it's like you say if you like the band, you're going to love it. Which kind of sounds cliche, but that's the truth.
Yeah, it's pretty much the truth on that one.
But I think with Clutch, it's one of those bands that, even though they have a huge following, they've always been under the radar of a lot of people.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people that would love them that don't know about them, because they're another one of those bands that, even though they early on got lumped into the stoner rock genre, they just kind of cross, a lot of different boundaries, and they're just a rock band, and I think even Neil Fallon has said that before, they just strive to be just a rock band, and it's they don't do wrong.
They're a Clutch band. They're Clutch.
Yeah. They're phenomenal live. They change up the set list every night. These guys don't do any wrong. Anyway.
So number 13.
This was Genexus from Fear Factory. And this was one I know wasn't on your list, but it was on mine.
Yeah.
Kind of high up. So, and Fear Factory is another band I've been a huge fan of forever, but kind of like you mentioned with Sevendust or Trivium, there's been the last few albums I just I listen to them, I like them, but they're hit and miss a lot. But when I heard this album, it brought me back to, those early albums, the first probably 3 albums, where it's just completely solid straight through. It sounds like early, the mid-90s Fear Factory, but it also sounds modern. And it's just a quality, amazing heavy metal album from these guys, and I'm really glad that they're still doing it, and they're back doing it, at least from, in my opinion, a higher level.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
So what was number 12?
Number 12. You're going to make me say this, aren't you?
That's why I asked you what was number 12. Yeah.
It's Lamb of God 7, Sturm und Drang. That was our number 12. Glad these guys are back. Glad everything went great with, D. Randall. And they're just back to kicking ass, and, they're throwing us a curveball or two, but they're keeping it. They're keeping their sound. They're epic. It's brutal, and they're really. It's just like I think I've talked about this before. This is the album that had to come out now. It's just something is lining up with the stars and with what they've been through, and this is really planted their foot. They had one foot planted in legend status, and I think they just planted their other one, to keep the legacy going, to where one day they're going to be like a big 4 band. And this album, they couldn't have done it without this album. They couldn't have got there to that without this album. It's just every song. Overlord is amazing. He's singing. I mean, just I don't know, what can you say? Yeah, that song Overlord just blew me away the first time I heard it. Yeah. And I think we talked about this before, but it's one of those songs where I wish it was back in the day, where you didn't, have your phone or the car radio where it told you what it was. So I could be listening to that just thinking, man, who is this? What's this band? And then all of a sudden, when it got 3.5 minutes in and he starts singing in his normal style, your jaw would hit the floor. Yeah, it would have. When you realize who it was. I know. It would have flipped your lid. Number 11, we had the Book of Souls from Iron Maiden. Oh, God, let's get into this. What can you say? They're another band that doesn't, at least in my opinion, hasn't had any missteps, really. And, with Bruce Dickinson. And in this album, I like it better than the last couple, even though I like those, But this has it has everything in it, It has that 18-minute long opus that's good, but then it also has like
songs that are 4.5
Yeah,
minutes long that just rock, and just sound like a hard rock heavy metal.
Yeah, 3.5 minute ass kicker.
Yeah. And it's got like I said, it's got everything on it, and it sounds like Iron Maiden, and it's great that these guys, basically 40 years in now, at least when the band started, I just read this a couple days ago, Steve Harris started the band on Christmas 40 years ago. So.
And they're still doing it, and they're still putting out epic stuff.
Yes.
I do not skip the 18-minute song. It's that good.
And we're looking forward to seeing these guys live. They're playing here in Tulsa in about 2 months.
That's right.
Can't wait for that. Number 10, we had Battering Ram from Saxon.
Yes.
Who is another band that's been around for decades, kicking ass nonstop.
That's right.
And these guys are, I know, at the top of your list
of
just
man.
Anything.
Oh, man. Come on. Young bands out there, what are you doing? You're getting your asses whipped by these old guys. They do everything better than you. Step it up. And Saxon is just another example. Battering Ram, it's not just solid, it's rock fucking solid. It's songwriting out the ass. Biff Byford's voice is on point, and he's not using machines or nothing. Battering Ram kicks you in the ass. Devil's Footprint, Three Sheets to the Wind, Kingdom of the Cross is just insane. This was... I just so glad to have a new Saxon album. Always love it.
And we recently did a podcast with Kirk Winstein from Crowbar,
which you should go listen to.
Yes, and he mentioned kind of that as well. He said he saw Saxon recently, and they blew all these young bands off the stage.
That's right.
Just live and the new album.
That's right.
Well, at number 9 we had Revolution from the Dead Daises.
That was a good one. Yes,
This album, for me, I was really excited when it came out because it included, guys from bands that, are at the top of my all-time list. Obviously, John Corabi is one of my favorite singers of all time. And then it's got Dizzy Reed, who everyone knows has been in Guns N' Roses since the Use Your Illusion era. And it's also got, a couple other guys that are known in the rock world. But this album is like it's kind of like, we were describing Clutch as just a rock band. It's like your classic rock, like a Rolling Stones, just amped up to a harder rock level. It just got that whole, just rock feel to it, where it kind of, it covers everything from, your bluesy stuff, your soul stuff, to just your good time. Like the song, one of the last songs in the album, Last Night, just takes you back to that 70s rock.
Yeah.
And, and the song Empty Heart, I've listened to probably 5,000 times over the past 6 months.
And that's what I think we've even said that. You could just hit repeat on that like 5 times.
Yeah.
That song never gets old. It's such a feel-good song.
Yeah, and the song Mexico. This whole album is great. John Corabi, his voice is, in my opinion, better than ever. It just gets more soul as he goes on, I think.
Yeah.
And that's another guy we saw live this year doing the Motley Crue 94 album in its entirety, and he's still phenomenal live.
Yeah, it sounds amazing.
Love to be able to see the Dead Daisies live, so hope they continue on, into the next couple of years with Corabi in the band, because they've had a couple albums before he was in the band. So number 8, we have Rise to Power from Battlecross.
Yes.
And this is an album that we were both huge on from the first time we heard it.
Oh, yeah, from the minute.
And this goes back to another one of our earlier podcasts. We had the singer Kyle Gunther on our podcast, like I think it was number 17 maybe.
Yeah.
So go back and check that out. These guys are modern thrash, mixed with just straight up, balls to the wall metal.
That's right.
It's from the get-go. It's in your face. Till like the last song, I think, is The Path. And that's the first time it kind of, it slows down for a second just for like, some melodic guitar stylings, and then it just kicks right back in, but
Yeah, I mean, it's just no frills, just power from the get-go. A track to check out my favorite is Spoiled. It's about midway through the album. It's got this new wave of British heavy metal, like, riff, just times 15. It's just insane.
Yeah, these guys are, this is their third album, and we've talked about this, I think, on that podcast that we had with them. It's just, they're making a steady climb up, and I think they're one of those bands that, a few more years from now, they're going to be like I don't know, on a Lamb of God level, but they're going to be one of those household names in the heavy metal world, at least.
Oh, I think so.
That's where I see them going, and hope they do, because they're all phenomenal musicians as well. Like, Don Slater, the bass player, is just unbelievable.
Oh, yeah.
Number 7, we had Ride from Motor Sister. And this was one that I struggled at almost putting at number 1 on my list.
Really?
Like, that's how much I liked it. But, the more I thought about the other stuff, it fell to I can't remember, it was number 3 or 4 on my list. But this is another one. It's in another super group. And it's got Scott Ian from Anthrax, John Tempesta,
Joey Vera, and then it's got Jim Wilson from the band Mother Superior. And this is one of those bands that's just underrated, overlooked, just kind of, most people, they never got mainstream exposure. We kind of fell onto them, and we got to see them live early on and just fell in love with these guys. And then they were in they were the backup to Henry Rollins and his reincarnation of the Rollins band for a while. That's right.
But all the Mother Superior stuff that Jim Wilson wrote is just amazing rock music, and just this bluesy rock, and his voice is phenomenal.
Yeah, it's like a whiskey-drenched Roadhouse thing, but like amped up a little bit.
Right.
And that band was just blazing live. We saw them in Austin, remember? And there's literally like 7 people there. It didn't matter to them. They killed it. And I got to see them with Rollins a lot. And so for these, and it didn't quite work out for Mother Superior. So to have this kind of resurrected is really cool.
Yeah, it's kind of a thing where Scott Ian and I think it was Brian Slagel from, is that Metal Blade?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, where they were both big fans, and they just put this jam together, and they ended up having such a great time. I thought, well, why don't we just record this stuff and give it new life?
Yeah.
And so it's basically Mother Superior stuff re-recorded, with guys from the world of metal that's heavier than Mother Superior was.
Yeah.
So it gives it a little more of a punch than the original stuff did, but it still has that, that bluesy, like you said, whiskey drenched feel to it as well.
Exactly.
Because it's still got his voice, which that's what his voice is.
That's right.
All right, number 6. What was that? How do you even say that?
Huh?
How do you say the name of the Ghost album? I don't want to screw it up.
Oh, Meliora. That's
okay.
How I think I'm pretty sure that's how I've heard it.
Okay.
I was sorry. I was like looking at, he's reading them off. I'll just let him read them off. I didn't know. But anyways, that was, this I've kind of seen with Ghost. Now they're getting bigger. They got nominated for a Grammy, so now you might hear them on the radio during the day a little bit more. I know I have. I know it's weird when I come home, my wife is like, oh, I heard Ghost on the radio today. It's like, what? So some stuff is happening for them, and I think it's great. You're going to get into the talk now of, oh, they're not cool anymore. They've sold out or whatever. Well, I don't care. They just get, this is their third album. Each one has a different vibe. The first one was real raw, gorilla, in your face. And the second one was a little bit more epic. And I think with Meliora, they've kind of found a good in between on that a little bit, you know, and you just got some insane songs from the Pinnacle. The Pit is amazing. Mummy Dust is just, you know, brooding and dark. He is like my fucking favorite track on the whole album. It's like epic, like Monstrance Clock was on Infestissimum. You know, it's got these just killer, just guitar moments. You know, and it's, if you YouTube these guys, you can look up a concert from when they first started, you know, and they're just kind of there in their robes. And now, you know, they're kind of just in their black suits with their mask, the band anyways, and they're getting into it more. They're emoting more. They're having a lot more fun, and it's coming across, and which I get, because something that not a lot of people are talking about with this album is just there's some great guitar. There's some insane solos, just really passionate runs. I mean, you know, you watch them on their concerts and they're just throwing their heads back and they're getting into it. And it's just, like I said before, you could just air guitar the shit out of this album, you know, whether you like Satan or not, you know, and they're really coming into their own musically. And, you know, and that's the most important thing, you know. The image is cool, it's dark, it's evil, they've got the masks and the this and the that, and that's awesome, you know, because I kind of like that kind of stuff. But, you know, let's not forget, musically, these guys are just killing it.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I like this, I think, better than the first two.
Yeah, I get that.
It's just got it's more of what I kind of expect them to sound like, you know?
That's right.
And maybe, like you said, every album's a little different, so maybe the next one will be another shift, but I see if they continue with any sound, this is probably the best way to do it, you know, this sound at least.
Oh, definitely.
Number 5 was Static from Huntress.
That's right.
And
that's right. You know, I think this is more of a me one than you.
Yeah, I like it, don't get me wrong, it didn't make my list, but I do love it.
Yeah. Well, this made my list, and this is getting into what I wanted to talk about, was the few albums. They were at the top of my list, and maybe when I knew they were coming out, knew I'd listen to them, but I wasn't expecting to get so blown away. But this was just one of like 3 or 4 albums that just all year, just go back to, just listen over and over and over. They're so enjoyable to listen to. Huntress are just, they've got riffs, they've got great production, they've just got a good meat and potato metal, you know, vibe. It's real, just no frills. It's nothing, you know, nothing that you don't need. It's nothing too wanky. It's a really, you know, Jill Janis, her vocals are just insane. They've got a great evil mid-range, but then she can like soar, you know, so I just think, this album, it was, you know, Flesh, Sorrow, I Want to Wake Up. That's probably one of my favorite ones. 4 Blood Moons. I mean, I can't
Four
tell you.
Blood Moons. I remember that riff, man.
I can't tell you how cool this album is. So I'm really, really glad to have it up there.
Yeah, one thing I want to say is people love metal bands that have hot women in them. Okay?
I know where you're going with this.
So why the fuck are you listening to Butcher Babies when you could be listening to Huntress?
Well,
because not only do they have a hot woman in the band, they have a hot woman that can sing her ass off.
That's right.
And while the Butcher Babies are great to look at, and they're cool people as well, I've listened to interviews with them, you know, it's like what? It's just boring, noisy shit.
Yeah, it is.
No offense if you love the Butcher Babies, but Huntress is heavy metal with amazing vocals, and that's what it's supposed to be, right?
And that's you're exactly right. It's heavy metal with amazing vocals. And the fucked up thing is a lot of people are just going to pass it, you know, throw it to the wayside because it's a female vocalist, or they're not going to give it, they're going to talk about her looks before her voice. And sometimes that happens, and I think it's unfortunate, especially when you have talent like this.
Right.
I mean, just pure talent, and it's being used for metal, so that's even better.
Exactly. Speaking of talent and metal, number 4 on our list was "Win Hands Down" from Armored Saint.
Yes.
And
this, for me, kind of like what I said earlier, if Armored Saint has an album out this year, it's going to be in our list.
right, because these guys, we talked about this, I think, when it came out. Like, these guys have been around since we were like 6, or something, and like since like the early '80s, and they've really only got like 6 or 7 albums.
Yeah,
is that right? And because obviously John Bush was away for a long time when he was in Anthrax, so they didn't do anything then. And now when they do albums, it's like every few years, and everything they do is great. But this album to me, just that the last album they did 5 or 6 years ago, I loved it, but this album just took it to a whole nother level.
Oh, I mean, just it's they don't do stuff all the time, and it's like they've said. When we got something, we're going to put it out. And boy, they got something.
Yeah, and like I mentioned earlier with Carubby and Whitfield Crane and Mike Patton, this was another one of my favorite singers of all time with the new album out this year. So it's kind of like overload for me. But I'm glad it's all lived up to the hype of what I hoped it would be. And like the song Mess is one of my favorite songs.
Oh, man.
Favorite songs of the year.
Yeah.
The whole album's great. Listen
Muscle
to this
Memory's
stuff.
awesome. Win Hands Down. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, it's just, if Armored Saint, kind of like we mentioned with a couple of these other bands, is one of those bands that people know the name, but they kind of probably fell under a lot of people's radar that don't dig deeper than what they hear on the radio, So, do yourself a favor and not just look into this album, look into the whole catalog from these guys, because John Bush, you can't go wrong with anything this guy does.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of the voices.
Yes. Okay, we're getting into the nitty gritty here.
Getting down to it.
The top 3.
Okay.
And number 3 is Hot Streak, the second album from the Winery Dogs.
There you have it, number 3.
And I think this is, I don't know what number podcast is going to be, 35 or 35, is that right?
Well, I'm not sure.
If that's wrong, who cares? But regardless, I think we've probably talked about Winery Dogs on like 27 of these podcasts. Huh?
Probably.
And
You're right.
There's good reason, because, like I mentioned before, when we first heard about this band a couple years ago, before we heard any music, I'm like, that trio sounds so amazing that there's no way it can live up to what I think it's going to be. But it has.
Yeah,
somehow.
it has. It's went past it.
Yeah, both these albums are phenomenal, and live, they're one of the best live bands you will ever see of any style of music ever.
Yeah, I mean, it's live. It's like a religious experience type kind of level.
Yes, and this album, no different than the first one, just quality, unbelievable. Billy Sheehan all over the place with that bass. Mike Portnoy doing his thing, and Richie Kotzen, with this unbelievable voice and this guitar that, another guy like all these other bands we're mentioning fall under people's radars because of, he's just a guitarist that, never got much more fame than what he had when he was in Poison or something.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what he got labeled at for a long time with a lot of people.
Yeah.
This guy's a phenomenal bluesy soul, just rock songwriter.
Well, you can't speak enough of how Billy Sheehan and Richie Kotzen, they play with each other and through each other and off of each other, and their parts just, weave in and out of each other like nothing I've ever heard. It's a chemistry that I don't think any other two people could produce.
Wow.
I mean, it's just these guys really caught something, and it's Billy Sheehan's one of my all-time favorite bass players. So as a just a hard rock fan, as a player myself, it's just these guys blow my mind. And Hot Streak is just it's not anything compared. You can just put it right with their first album. Neither one of them's better than the other one. It could all go together. It's just all amazing.
Yeah, Captain Love and How Long are two of my favorite songs off this.
Yeah.
But like you said, it's just every song, this album, the last album, and they've got a sound already that's kind of all their own.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Like you could tell who it is instantly because of that guitar sound, and then especially when he's singing. But, even like you said, because you can hear that bass shine through well more than you do with any other band.
That's right.
And I was fortunate enough to see him 3 times this year.
You bastard.
Yeah. We saw him that time at Rocklahoma, and
Yes.
I saw him 2 other times in South Oklahoma and in Dallas. And it's just one of, like you said, a religious experience where, like, they're on from the beginning to the end, and you can't really compare it to anything, other than just being, what if I used the word phenomenal like 40 times already, but.
Hey, if it's there, use it, because
Right.
it's true. So what's number 2?
Number 2 is another supergroup, Skyline Whispers from the Night Flight Orchestra.
That's right. Break down the members for this one, Trent.
Well, I can't break them all down. I'll be honest with you.
Well,
without looking at a list.
Well, tell us what bands they're
the
from.
key members: Sherry D'Angelo from Arch Enemy, and then David Anderson and Bjorn Strid from Soilwork.
There you go.
And when you hear those 2 words, these are, melodic death metal bands from, Scandinavia. You're thinking, oh, this is a super group of melodic death metal. No.
No.
Not even close. And this is another band we've talked about 20 times on our podcast because I can't get tired of anything. Like their first album came out 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I've listened to it a billion times, and I'm going to listen to it a billion more times.
Oh, yeah, it'll wear it out.
It's just, they started this group so they could perform AOR style, classic rock, basically.
Yeah. And
the thing is, they're as good as the stuff that they're kind of emulating, and in some cases even better.
See, I think it's better.
I mean,
they for somehow this band of, death metal guys from Europe have come together to form this band of, like, late 70s, maybe a little bit of early 80s classic radio rock that sounds like it's from America. And I got to think, when you say that, you think of like Journey and Foreigner and Styx and whatever. Well, I like this shit way better than any of those bands. So I don't know. I don't know if it's just, the chemistry, the musicianship, the songwriting, but it's kind of like Winery Dogs. These guys have captured something.
Yeah, captured something's a great way to put it, because it's just not anything you ever expected to hear. Like, I hope these death metal dudes start rocking out and sounding like Foreigner,
Exactly.
And it's that first album, there was stuff that had a Sammy Hagar feel at times, had a Kiss feel, like you said, Foreigner, just all that stuff you mentioned. And this second album even goes into like Asia. There's points where you're like, this sounds like 1984, like Stiletto.
I get that. Oh, Stiletto's a great song.
And there's I Ain't Old, I Ain't Young, which has a total Fleetwood Mac feel to it.
Yeah.
And there's just, all those bands we've mentioned, and they're all from that whole 70s, 80s era of AOR rock. And that's what they're attempting to emulate. And they've, like we just said, they captured it, and it's just unbelievable. And I can't talk this band up enough. I think when the album came out, we both said it was our favorite album of that year.
Oh man, yeah.
And here we are with their second album. It's at number 2 on the list.
Yeah.
And it's, I can't, just like with the Winery Dogs, I can't ask you enough to just, if you're not familiar with this, to look it up.
Yeah, you've got to hear this. You've got to hear this stuff.
And his Bjornstrud, from Soilwork, his vocals are unbelievable. And his second album kind of took it to another level. He hits a lot of high notes where I'm just like, I'm kind of floored, in a way.
How are you doing that?
Right.
I know.
And I can't wait to hear album number 3. And I just hope and pray that, maybe in the next couple of years we'll get a few dates in America, and they might play in the middle of America somewhere, Texas or something, and we can get lucky. I don't see it happening, but you never
never know.
Right. All right, we're here at the final spot.
We're at number 1, everybody.
Should we do like those old shows did and just recap everything?
No. I think
people want us to stop talking.
Yeah, they might have turned us off already.
Yeah,
but for those of you that didn't,
well, let me say, as we've mentioned here throughout this, several bands that are classic bands that have been around for a long time, like Armored Saint, Iron Maiden, Saxon, Clutch, Faith No More, and then we've got these super groups.
Yeah.
Guys that have been around a long time, like the Winery Dogs and the Night Flight Orchestra and Dead Daises. Then other bands that have been around, like Lamb of God and Fear Factory. And then a few bands that are, newer, but they have several albums under their belt, like Huntress and Battlecross. But here we are at number 1.
Yep.
With a band on their debut album.
That's right.
Their first album came out this past April.
Yep, they're new.
They're new. They've been around for a while in South Texas, but they're new to the rest of the country and to us.
Yeah. And I didn't think that this band, when around October, November, and I really had to start thinking about it, I thought, this might be number 1. And I wouldn't have thought it, but, really, it doesn't matter that this is their first album or that they're new on the scene. It's just that damn good.
Right. And it's baptized in the Rio Grande by Sons of Texas.
That's right. Sons of Texas. They've got our number 1 album of 2015, and we're going to tell you why.
And I'll start with saying just what you just said. I'm kind of, I thought that, this is definitely going to be in my top 10. That's just what was in my head.
Yeah.
But kind of like you said, when you start reevaluating, I'm like, I listen to this album over and over.
Exactly. And that's and it's just kind of with the Huntress thing. What was I listening to the most? And there you go.
Yeah, I probably listened to this album more than anything this year besides the Night Flight Orchestra we just talked about.
Yeah.
And it's one of those albums that concise, and it's, I know what you talked about a bunch that you love. It's in and out. Every song, is your 3 or 4 minute long, and there's no filler. I mean, no filler. Right? Is that what I'm trying to say? Yeah, it's all killer, no filler.
That's right. You hear this. I'm going down the list of songs, and I know every one of them, and I can sing them to you because this album is so amazing. It's so catchy, but it's so heavy. It's so brutal, yet, accessible. It just rides that perfect line of the kind of stuff that we love.
Yeah, and it's, like you said, the stuff we love, what we grew up on, is, I think, the same. That's probably, these guys are probably close to our age, maybe a little younger, but they probably grew up on the same stuff.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And it's got that early, mid-90s heavy rock feel. And, they've got compared a lot to Pantera because the vocalist, has that sound at times. But it's more, he's got that feel sound at times, but it goes more than that in a way, because he's real melodic at times too.
Definitely.
And the guitars kind of have that vibe as well, but it's just, it's the best way to put it is it's just straight up hard rock that doesn't let up.
Yeah. It's
like Bury the Hatchet to me is, the Pull It and Fire is one of my favorite songs of the year. It's just, everything I love about hard rock music.
Exactly. I mean, it's like slabby fucking riffs, nothing too complicated. I mean, it's heavy as hell, but it's not, I don't know, it's just, the only way I can describe it, just kind of like I said earlier, it rides that perfect line.
And it rides a perfect line between hard rock and heavy metal.
Exactly.
Both people from both sides could really get into this because it's heavy enough that if you're into just mainly heavy metal, you could probably still dig it, and it's still got that hard rock sensibility, like you said, to where it falls right in with that.
Yeah.
And me, I love all genres of rock and metal, but when it comes down to it, the stuff I love the most is just that. My main love, probably my whole life, has just been that stuff that's just straight up hard rock.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, definitely.
That's just the best way to describe this. And I think it's great that there's a young band like this, and I hope that they continue on this path. They've had a quick kind of, I think, quick for a band like that to have a debut album out in April and not be on a huge label or anything, and they've done well for themselves. They got on several tours.
Yes.
With big name people. They've kind of continued on that path, and I know they're continuing into the new year touring, and I think they're on the right path to get themselves heard more, and hopefully more people get into this.
Yeah, because this band needs to keep going. This band needs to do album 2, album 3. They need to play to as many people. People need to know what it is we're talking about right now.
Right.
About this band. We cannot let this band just, get eaten up by the mainstream, radio, I don't know what type kind of machine that a lot of new bands, fall prey to. This band is way beyond that. They're way higher up than that. So pleased to have them number 1 on our list. It's just a strong, strong record. It doesn't matter if it's a band's 15th album or their first album. This record is strong as hell.
Yeah, and we had one of the guitarists, John Oliveris, on a podcast here earlier this year.
Yes, we did.
Probably about 3 or 4 months ago. So go back and check that out if you're listening to this because you're a Sons of Texas fan. It was great to have him on, and we hope to have him or someone else from the band on again in the future because,
definitely.
We're going to check these guys out live as often as we can. We saw them twice this year.
Yes.
Once opening for Buck Cherry and once at Rocklahoma, and both times they laid it down.
Yeah,
they're as good as they're as good as they are on album.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt.
All right, well, there we go, our top 15, and we wanted to knock out a few names here of bands that have albums coming out this coming year.
That's right.
That we're really looking forward to. Some of our favorite bands of all time have albums coming out, and several other bands do, so it's already looking like 2016 might even be a great one again, too.
Yeah, I mean, you got Anthrax, Megadeth, Corrosion Conformity with Pepper back in the fold.
My God.
Yeah, I know. I mean, come on. Metallica is, I would think, hopefully, going to have another album out this year. I mean, they've been working on it. So.
They're putting out teasers of new music.
Yes, they sure are. Devil Driver, Blackstone Cherry, there's a new song out on that one. Killswitch Engage. So it's looking promising. And there's, there'll be other stuff too that we don't even know about yet.
Alter Bridge.
Yeah.
The Rammstein is something huge I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, definitely.
Can't wait to hear something new from them. Spirit Caravan is another band we had on the podcast here a couple months ago, and they talked about on there they've got a new album coming out here in the spring. So looking forward to that.
Definitely.
Insight, like we mentioned earlier, has a new one, and they were on the podcast earlier. Seasons After has a new one coming out. And
that's right.
That's one that we talked about recently on a podcast that we recorded an interview with the singer Tony, and then I had computer issues and lost it. So that sucks, but definitely check that out. They're a good, solid hard rock band. And finally, one that I'm hoping comes out is there was this rumor, or Mick Mars made comment about this months ago, and then Karabi just like 2 days ago confirmed that he was doing something with him next year. So we don't know if that means an album or what it means, but John Karabi and Mick Mars
that would be
are supposed
epic.
to be doing something.
That would be insane.
Yeah. So that's definitely something to look forward to, because I've always been interested to hear Mick Mars do something outside of Motley Crue, because he's the guy that always got overlooked.
Yeah.
And then, of course, when you add one of the greatest vocalists ever to the mix. You can't go wrong.
No, never. So, I mean, one of the things that that helps us do this and talk about this and keeps going is all the shows we go to. We go to a ton of them, and we go to a lot of good ones. What were some memorable ones for you this year?
Well, we've got some stuff like Warrant that we saw. We saw them a couple times, and they're a band that we've seen a million times.
Yes.
I say a million times, but probably 10 or 15 times now. And they, we're huge fans of them. And Robert Mason, has stepped into Janie Lane's spot and phenomenally. And they're a great live band. It's fun. It never gets old, at least to me, since we're from that era of music.
Yeah, Robert Mason just nails it perfectly. And they're just such a good, well-oiled machine now. They're so fun to see live.
And just in the same exact capacity of that as Tesla. And I saw them 3 times this year, which put me up to 25 now. And,
God, you're a machine.
Yeah. And they're the same type of thing. It's just a well-oiled machine. Actually, I saw them 4 times.
See,
I saw
there
them
you
open
go.
for Def Leppard. I forgot about that.
Good God.
Yeah. And they don't disappoint. They're a great live band.
Yeah.
We mentioned Karabi earlier. We saw his Motley 94 thing.
That was definitely a highlight.
Unbelievable. I talked about the Whitesnake earlier, and we just mentioned Spirit Caravan, who we saw in a tiny club here in Tulsa called Downtown Lounge, and there wasn't a great turnout, but they got up there and they threw it down, and it was quite an honor to be able to not only talk to him on our podcast, but see him in a setting like that.
Oh yeah, definitely.
He's this legendary figure in wino, and
he's just right in your face.
This power trio that just lays it thick.
Yeah, that was an amazing show.
I saw Butch Walker for the first time in like forever. We saw him back in Austin.
Yeah, way back.
And this was I saw him at the Canes, and it was another thing. It wasn't a huge turnout because he's never been a mainstream guy, but he just floored it. It was just a real emotional kind of thing. It was it's hard to explain, but
yeah.
I finally got to see Alice Cooper, who's always been on my bucket list of bands I've missed for several times for one reason or another.
Which that brings me to something. Did you ever find the tickets that you lost a couple years ago?
I still have not.
That's fucking insane. Yeah. One day they're going to pop up.
Right? Yeah, like last time he came 2 years ago, I lost the tickets. And I didn't have printed home tickets. I had hard tickets. So the one time I actually had hard tickets and I lost them.
And look what happens. I know.
But when he came back, I got first row tickets.
Bam.
So it kind of made up for all that.
Definitely. Definitely.
So that was kind of an unbelievable experience to see Alice Cooper finally and see him from the first row.
Yeah.
We mentioned the Winery Dogs.
That was probably one of my top highlights. Like I said earlier, religious experience.
Yeah, we mentioned Clutch. Anthrax was we saw at Rocklahoma, which you mentioned on the Rocklahoma review.
Yes.
Was one of the best times we've ever seen them.
Oh, hands down, one of the best times. They had some kind of fire going on. I don't know. It was indescribable.
Right. And another great one from Rocklahoma was Queensryche.
That's right.
Like we talked about earlier, it's just great to see them, back. And we recently saw Crowbar opening for Soulfly, which I'm a fan of Soulfly, but I hadn't seen Crowbar in a long time, and it was amazing to see him right up close.
Oh yeah.
And I've really gotten into him a lot more over the last few years, so it was really great experience,
And we got to record an insanely kick-ass podcast with Kirk Winstein.
Right. Another one that I know is at the top of both of our list was seeing Black Label Society on the Unblackened tour.
That's right.
Got to see a lot. It's my favorite set list that I've ever seen Black Label do, because it included a lot of the stuff from Book of Shadows and some Pride and Glory stuff that he doesn't play live with Black Label most of the time.
Yeah, it was definitely a treat to hear.
And, it was a set, more stripped down, but it was still plugged in but it was a more laid back feel. They were sitting on stools and stuff.
Yeah, it was definitely a different vibe. It was a cool experience to see.
And we got to see Wino do his unplugged
Yes, definitely.
performance before that, which was awesome. And there was tons of other stuff, but one of the highlights of our year was Riot Fest. And while we're recording this podcast, we just found out that that Lemmy died.
Yes, in the midst of this recording, we learned that Lemmy from Motorhead has passed away. So we were really glad we got to see him. It's a sad day for rock and roll.
Yeah.
I just saw somebody, we got on and looked in our news feeds, and everyone's commenting, everyone's posting. And I don't know who it was, but someone just said rock and roll just got a lot safer. And it did. And it's, rest in peace, Lemmy. We got a lot of good years.
Definitely. And we, quite an honor that we got to see him, because when we saw him, it was right after the whole thing where he had canceled. They had canceled like several shows in a row because he was sick.
Yes.
And he came back and performed at Riot Fest in Chicago. And, you could tell he wasn't 100%.
Yeah.
But he still went out there, pulled it off, sounded good. He didn't sound bad. He just didn't sound 100%, And, when you got the guys around him that he's got with Mickey D and Phil, it's like it lifts it.
Lifts it up,
exactly. Because they're so great at what they do.
Yeah, and energy from the crowd, and, that helps you out, too.
So it'd be interesting to see what they do in the future, because you definitely don't want to not be able to see him play the drums live.
Yeah, I know. He is a monster. But, But yeah, R.I.P. Lemmy is a sad day in rock today.
Definitely. Well, also, I guess we're talking about Riot Fest. That was one of our highlights of the year. We got to see Rollins do a spoken word.
Yep, Living Color.
Yes. And like we mentioned earlier, Faith No More.
Rancid.
System of a Down, Rancid. That was
Anthrax again.
Right. So, that whole thing was great to finally go to a Riot Fest, because they always have these great eclectic lineups where it crosses the board from punk to country to metal to rap to whatever.
Exactly.
So it's a cool experience if you've never been to one. Well, do we have anything else we want to mention?
Well, we've had a good year, a good first year for the podcast and for Thunder Underground. What are you looking forward to with our show and with our pages and stuff? What would you like to see happen?
I don't know. More people.
People
listening. So share this with your friends.
That's right.
Yeah. You
Some
can
kick-ass guests.
Yeah, of course. As always, we're always working on that. There's a lot of concerts coming our way in the next few months, and we're definitely going to be trying to bring some more guests to you. And we've also got several people locally and regionally that we've talked to that are going to be on here coming up. So we're not at a loss for content, that's for sure. So
yes.
We're happy about that.
Oh, for sure.
And I'm excited that we've just been doing this since May, and it's where it's at now. So I think we're doing pretty good with it. And
yeah, I think we're on track. We got some ideas. We got some good guests. We've been working on it. I guess we could talk about it, but we've got the Thunder Underground commemorative chess set coming out.
Oh, yes. It's wooden with glass chess pieces.
Yeah, and pewter. And you can get it from Time Life,
That's right.
So
if you order a subscription by January 5th.
That's right. So be on the lookout for this stuff.
Definitely. TheThunderUnderground.com has all our previous podcasts on there. A lot of other reviews and content. SoundCloud.com/Thunder-Underground has all the podcast list right there. Find us on Facebook. We're always posting either the podcast or other stuff, as well as on Instagram and Twitter. And we've got a YouTube channel. And I'm going to throw up a companion playlist for this episode that has a song from these top 15 albums. So check that out.
Perfect.
And be on the lookout of our future stuff. And we appreciate you sitting through this long-winded explanation of our year in review.
That's right. If you've made it this far, we appreciate the shit out of you. Like and share it, and please go back and listen to some other episodes and, check out maybe some stuff you missed.
Definitely. So until next time, we'll see you in 2016.